archaeology is truly one of the most fascinating aspects of history, as it quite literally digs up the past. In this video, I'm going to be covering some of the most intriguing and mysterious archaeological finds, most of which still puzzle historians to this day. It is safe to say that King Tutankhamun is most definitely the most famous pharaoh of ancient Egypt, made famous by the incredible discovery of his tomb in 1922 by Egyptologist Howard Carter. Located in the Valley of the Kings, which was the main royal burial site of ancient pharaohs since the mid-1500s BC, his tomb was discovered completely undisturbed, with most of the royal tombs having been damaged or looted since. One fascinating object found amongst the hundreds of jaw-dropping artifacts buried with Tutankhamun for him to use in the afterlife, stashed alongside his golden dagger, lay the famous iron dagger of Tutankhamun. Sporting a gleaming golden hilt and an intricately designed golden sheath, the dagger is a true beauty of craftsmanship. Yet, the discovery completely perplexed historians and archaeologists, because Tutankhamun was living in the Bronze Age, an era in history characterized by bronze, and an era in which bronze was the pinnacle of metallurgy. Iron, on the other hand, was pretty inaccessible, and due to iron's extremely high melting point of over 1,500 degrees Celsius, the Egyptians were unable to forge it into blades, armor, or anything for that matter, which is why this iron dagger is such a mystery. How did they craft an iron blade at a time when iron wasn't an accessible metal? Well, to answer this question, researchers in 2016 at the Polytechnic University of Milan began investigating the blade's composition at a chemical and molecular level. In doing so, they discovered that the iron used to forge this dagger was actually meteoric iron rather than iron ore found within the earth. Surely something Tutankhamun and his peoples would have been obsessing over at the time of the dagger's production, as the iron was sent from the gods themselves. But the research didn't stop there, as further analyses of the chemical composition of the blade and the discovery of a cross-hatched texture on both sides of the blade, called the Widmanstätten pattern, led scientists and researchers to believe that the meteor which carried this iron could have come from the vast asteroid belt between Jupiter and Mars. The crosshatch pattern also suggests that whoever forged this marvellous dagger would have processed the iron from the meteorite by heating it at a lower temperature than we do when processing iron today. And yet another mystery of this incredible iron dagger is how it came into the hands of Tutankhamun. Japanese researchers discovered ancient Egyptian texts which mentioned a gold-hilted iron blade which was donated to King Amenhotep III by the King of Mitanni, now northern Syria and Turkey, as a ceremonial gift for his wedding. It is entirely possible that King Tutankhamun's iron dagger was perhaps handed down to him from his grandfather Amenhotep III, and wasn't created specifically for Tutankhamun. On the beautiful Isla del Cano, and tucked away in the Diques Delta of Costa Rica, archaeologists stumbled across an extremely puzzling find. First discovered by accident in the early 20th century by a company clearing land for banana plantations, more recent excavations by archaeologists have led to over 300 stone spheres being uncovered. Historians place these intriguing spheres somewhere between 800 to 1500 AD and attribute them to the Chiriqui period of the Diques culture, a fascinating indigenous group of people from Costa Rica who find their beginnings around the 16th century BC. As time passed, these people gradually became more and more complex, developing structured political administrations and a complex socio-economic system too, until around 300 BC, a period historians today call the Aguas Buenas period, when these people decided to take it a step further by constructing the earliest stone sculptures of this culture, including stone cylinders, barrels, and somewhat mythological-looking characters. 800 years later, the Diques people began sculpting the stone spheres we see today. The stone spheres themselves are mostly pretty random, varying greatly in size, and composing of different types of stone. While some found measure at just a few centimeters in diameter, others measure an impressive 2 meters in diameter. And while most are composed of gabo, a native igneous rock to Costa Rica, which is very similar to granite, a handful of others are composed of limestone or sandstone. After sourcing large rocks or boulders, the Dickus people would then hammer them carefully into rounded shapes, and give them a smooth finish by rubbing sand along the surface, much like the sandpaper we use today. The mystery therefore is clearly not who made them, when they were made, or indeed how they were made. But why? The answer is, well, no one really knows. Some have argued the possibility of them encompassing paths leading up to the houses of the local and ruling elites, or centres, in the same way as a colonnade acted in ancient Rome or Greece. Others, meanwhile, have argued that they could simply just have acted as decoration, placed elaborately in public squares. The majority of historians and archaeologists believes that the spheres were linked to the chiefdom settlements of the Dickus society. Their purpose, however, still remain a mystery. Now, while this next mystery isn't quite an archaeological find, I've still included it as an incredibly mysterious historical item, which has baffled scientists and historians alike for centuries. In the year 1912, Wilfred Voynik, a Polish revolutionary, antiquarian, and bibliophile, was wandering around the bookshelves of a library in a Jesuit college near Rome when he stumbled across a fascinating manuscript. Opening this peculiar book, Voynik noticed a letter from around the 1600s tucked in between the pages, which recorded the book's purchase by the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II. This manuscript, now named after Voynik himself, appeared to be some sort of medieval alchemy handbook from roughly the late 15th century to early 16th century, as its 230 pages were packed with unusual illustrations of plants, heavenly spheres, and bathing women. This, however, was not the manuscript's biggest mystery. The real head-scratcher here was, and still is to this day, the text itself. Written entirely in cryptic code, since its discovery in 1912, this extremely unusual code or language is yet to be translated, as scholars and researchers continue their attempts at doing so as we speak. In 1921, a professor of philosophy at the University of Pennsylvania claimed that the Voynik Manuscript was written in anagrams, and that this would lead to it being deciphered. This theory, however, was quickly debunked. Another, by John Stoyko, a philologist working in 1978, claimed the manuscript was written in Ukrainian, but with the vowels in each word removed. Again, much like every other theory on this mystifying text, this was debunked, as scholars pointed out that his translation didn't match either the Ukrainian's history or the illustrations upon each page. So, if it's not some sort of cryptic code, then could it possibly be its own unique language? Probably not. As Gordon Rugg demonstrates, the text within the Voynik manuscript shows extremely high levels of regularity, meaning that the most common words found in the text often occur 2 or more times in a row. Well, why is this significant? It's because this amount of repetition isn't found in any known language to ever have existed. So, if it's not a cryptic code, or an unknown language, what could it be? As many scholars are beginning to speculate, this perplexing piece of history could actually be an extremely elaborate hoax. A recent article in the Scientific American by Gordon Rugg observes of how using the card and grill, a piece of card with slots cut out of it in specific places, which allow certain parts of a table or grid to show, produces extremely effective prefixes, midfixes, and suffixes, which Rugg found created words identical to those found in the Voyniki's manuscript. In fact, many scholars speculate, including Gordon Rugg, that this crafty hoax was created by English adventurer and traveller Edward Kelly, a notorious forger, mystic, and alchemist who was very familiar with card and grills. Sometime in the 1580s, it is well known that Kelly visited the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolf II, and so it is entirely possible that Kelly produced this manuscript in order to defraud the emperor, selling it to Rudolf II for an extortionate $50,000 in today's money. Often referred to as Archimedes' dial, this jaw-dropping piece of ancient technology, once thought impossible to exist at its time, has been a huge centre of historical and archaeological debate. This seemingly impossible mechanism was found by a group of sponge divers in 1901 amongst a Roman shipwreck from the 2nd century BC, a time of peak Greek cultural influence and power around the Mediterranean and beyond, with leaps of progress in literature, architecture, philosophy, and maths and science. The Roman shipwreck was located just off the coast of the small Greek island of Antikythera, nestled between Crete and the Peloponnese, and was host to some of the best preserved bronze and marble statues of Mediterranean antiquity, alongside the mechanism itself. But what exactly is the Antikythera mechanism? What is its function, and how does it work? The Antikythera mechanism was an unbelievably complex piece of antique engineering, which was used as a means of calculating and displaying information about astronomical phenomena. By utilising a complex system of interlocking gears and dials, operated by a hand crank, the machine was able to predict many different astronomical events, such as solar and lunar movements, planetary positions, eclipses, and many, many more. The device displayed these predictions using a cleverly designed system of concentric dials and pointers, resembling a clock's hands, and on the front, accompanied by inscribed labels of the 12 zodiac signs upon a fixed dial. As you can see, this marvel of ancient engineering is truly a groundbreaking discovery, which forces us to rethink our understanding of ancient technology. It is quite simply centuries ahead of its time, as no other device like this, of such complexity and craftsmanship, has ever been found or known to exist until medieval cathedral clocks were invented a sheer millennium later. Many of you will have heard of the famous Nazca Lines of Peru, but what's the story behind them? And what theories are there to explain the mystery behind their creation and purpose? Often referred to as geoglyphs by experts, these incredible and vast enigmas are located near the town of Nazca, hence their name, and are presented in 2 phases. The Paracas phase, dating from around 400 BC to 200 BC, and the Nazca phase, dating somewhere between 200 BC to 500 AD. Created by the ancient culture of the Nazca, these peoples had a fascinating and complex society, consisting of chiefdoms, an economy based around agriculture, and a fascinating set of religious beliefs set around agriculture and fertility. In terms of the lines themselves, around 800 straight lines, 300 geometric figures, and 70 animal and plant designs have been found as of 2021, with more constantly being uncovered from beneath the dirt. With such a vast quantity of complex lines, shapes, and animal and plant designs, it begs the question, what was their purpose? Unfortunately, no one has ever been able to discover the true purpose of these magnificent giant artworks, though many theories over the past few decades have been proposed. Historians Paul Kosok and Maria Reich suggested that the Nazca Lines served an astronomical purpose, in that the lines were intended to act as a sort of astronomical observatory, in which the different lines and shapes aligned to points on the horizon, where the sun and other celestial bodies rose or set at the solstices. This, however, was disproved by archaeoastronomers Gerald Hawkins and Anthony Aveni in 1990, who claimed their evidence was insufficient to support an astronomical explanation. Another theory, put forth by John Reinhard in 1985, speculated that the lines were part of religious practices performed by the ancient Nazca peoples, which involved the worshipping of deities associated with the availability of water, which directly linked to the success and productivity of the crops which they grew. Adding to this, Reinhard also theorized that the figures of animals and creatures were symbols which invoked the aid of their mighty deities in supplying them with water. So, what do you think? Do you have any theories about any of the mysteries I've discussed in this video? If you do, share them in the comments, as I'd love to read them. And if you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing for more history content releasing every week, with shorts, videos like this one, and mini documentary style episodes releasing bi-monthly. Thank you all for watching.